Hello and welcome. This is Mouse Gunner, and we're back with some more automation, the car company tycoon game. Continuing on with the campaign roleplay of the Edison car company in 1991. Now, we've been focusing on just doing the engine builds for now. So we've done the engine builds for the Luna, the Star, and finally, we're progressing up in size in our sedan category to doing our Constellation, which is our large sedan. So in this video, we'll be probably revising the BS, and I just love every time you click on something, it hops you up there. The BS91 engine to the Constellation, and then we'll probably be building a V8. But rather than use the old workhorse, the HP300 engine, we'll be building a brand new V8. So let's go ahead and do the revision of the V6 first, and then we'll hop into the V8 here in a second. So what are we going to do as changes? Well, we already have, I think, most everything set up the way I would like, with the fuel injection being added onto the BS series of engines now. Mostly, I probably just increase the fuel quality up to premium, and then kind of work with the engine based off of that change, and maybe... Not sure. Well, first off, we're going to... Oh, you know what? I'm doing changes, and I haven't done a clone yet. Make sure I do the clone before I make any changes. There we go. Okay, now we're in the clone. We're going to switch to premium fuel. We're going to add on another reverse flow muffler, bring down that noise. And then we're probably just going to play around with the engine, get a little bit more performance out of it, but not much beyond that. So we have more fuel octane to work with by a pretty good margin. So I'm thinking of increasing the compression here. And, I just want to look at what we got as far as, okay. And we might even upgrade this thing to dual exhaust rather than single exhaust, but obviously we need to change the exhaust diameter here. Looks like 1.5 is where it would like to be, although we gain a lot of torque by being 1.25. We'll put it at 1.25 inches for now, and maybe I'll bring it up a tick if it looks like we need it. So 149 and 168, and we still have a lot of room to move, so probably ignition timing would be a good call here. I don't know if I want to go any further with compression, although we could, just as a, to simplify everything. Probably take another couple ticks here. I don't know if we could get quite to 10. Oh, we can, actually. All right, that's good. So we got it up to 10, so we are at 152 and 172, excuse me. And let's go ahead and just bring that compression ratio. Okay, we already got it to the limit. So mostly we just brought up that compression ratio quite a bit to bring up our power just a tad. And then we just adjusted our ignition timing that little slight bit. Okay, so this is going to be our 3-liter, or the 3.0 as I call it, C variant. And there's our V6 variant. Now it's time to hop into making our, and I didn't check the exhaust diameter, and I'm make sure I do that before we do anything else. Okay, so we do need 1.5 inches to get the most power out of this. We do lose torque, but I think it's worth it, so we'll save it one more time, and there we go. Okay, now that we have our V6, it's time to make our V8, which this being a brand new engine, we're going to be building from scratch. And let's bring it into the 1991 year. And before I get too far into this, as per usual, I'm going to compare the Chevy V8s from this time period. So we have the base V8 engine for the Camaro RS convertible, the Camaro Z28, the Capri Classic, and the Capri Classic LTZ. This is an overhead valve V8, or pushrod as we would call it in this game. Cast iron block and head. Displacement is 305 cubic inches, or 5 liters, which is roughly about what we're going for as far as displacement. Compression ratio comes in at 9.3. 230 horsepower at 4,400 RPM, and 255 foot-pounds of torque at 2,400 RPM. This does have fuel injection. What type of fuel injection it has depends on which model it is. It either comes with port fuel injection or throttle body fuel injection, although it's kind of confusing the way they have it written here, so just it has either or. There's also an optional V8 for the Camaro RS Coupe, and this is the same as the engine we just mentioned, the 305 cubic inch engine, except that it comes with 170 horsepower at 4,000 RPM. There's no explanation of why it has so much less horsepower, 230 down to 170, and it doesn't mention any difference in torque, so that's the only thing it says. It just, for the Camaro RS Coupe, it's 170 horsepower. I don't know why. Then there's an optional V8 for the Camaro Z28 Coupe, as well as the Capri Classic LTZ. This is also an overhead valve V8, which is no surprise considering this is Chevy after all. And it is a cast iron block and head. Displacement comes in at 350 cubic inches, which is 5.7 liters roughly. And compression ratio is 9.3 as well. Horsepower comes in at 245 at 4,000 RPM and 345 foot-pounds of torque at 3,200 RPM. This also has port fuel injection. So pretty torquey there. Now, as I said, we're going with a 5-liter engine. Now, I've been kind of torn on whether I'm going to do a different family capacity, as we'll probably be putting this engine family also in our, and I'm going to go with cast iron here, in our pickup truck, the Asteroid, but I don't think I will. I think I'm going to stay with the same displacement. Hopefully the fuel injection will kind of make up for the difference in performance. So I'm going with 5-liter. And let's see if we can get it close to that. Having the bore be a little bit more than the stroke. Oh, there we go. Exactly 5 liters. So 93 and 92. Now, what kind of head and valves I'm going to use? I'm thinking about doing just a single overhead cam, as that's the same style we used for the V6 engine, which is the BS family, I believe. Oh, no, wait, that was with the brand new inline 4. I'm not exactly sure what we used with the BS family of engines. But in any case, I could go with dual overhead cam, and that would give us more options for the future, but I think it's more period correct to do a single overhead cam, especially for an American-style car. But I'm definitely not going to do push rod, as we've, as a company, have moved away from that for quite some time ago, and had been previously using direct acting overhead cam. That's what the HP 300 family of engines used. So I'm going to go with the overhead cam, but I think I'm going to go with 3 valves per cylinder rather than 2 valves per cylinder. Okay, moving along. We're going to do, did I choose cast iron here as well? So cast iron, yep, okay. We're going to go with cast, and hypertectic cast. As I said, I think the variant capacity is going to stay the same. Compression, we'll go ahead and bring that down to 8 just to be safe. Cam profile, I'll keep the same. Styling, looks like we only have one choice here, as far as I can tell. So let's go with, we'll do white. Go naturally aspirated. Injection, single point EFI, and we'll go with premium. Gonna bring the ignition timing down, and exhausts, we'll go short cast, but we'll go dual, and we'll go 3-way cat and reverse flow, reverse flow. Now keep in mind, this is definitely the Constellation build. I would be doing things quite a bit differently if this was the V8 in the Asteroid, which is our pickup truck, but obviously we're not doing that yet. So moving along. No, that's weird. Like the graphs aren't working or something. Maybe once I hit start it will. Oh, there we go. Okay, so far, so good. So 241 horsepower and 264 foot-pounds of torque. So as we discussed before, we were getting, 230 horsepower with the Chevy engine, that base one, the 5-liter. And they were getting 255 foot-pounds of torque. So we're outperforming that engine already, and we haven't really done anything to this engine. But that 5.7 liter engine is outperforming us at least both in horsepower and torque. Torque by a large margin. Horsepower only by 4 points there. So we're not too far off from the 5.7 liter engine in performance at the moment. But I am going to be doing quite a bit of tweaks. But we kind of have our baseline. So we're looking at 230 and I think 255 as far as what the Chevy engine was doing. So let's go ahead and look at our exhaust and what it is, how it is performing. So 1.75 is not where we want it. We want it at least at 2. Yeah, 2 inches looks like the peak there. We have a little bit of color change in our pistons and conrods, but we might not be able to do a whole lot about that. This is pretty high revving at the moment. Probably higher revving than I really want it to be. And 5,800 RPM, I'm going to assume, is not the limit. I mean, not where we want this. And I think our reliability is going to start really tanking here as a result. So it looks like 6,200 is where our peak is. So again, my rule of thumb usually is 400 after where you get to power. And that's exactly where our peak is. So that's good. But as we can see, just 1 point of change is really going to drop our reliability quite a bit from 51.3 down to 49.2. So more than 2 points of change. But that's, I think that's kind of bad for this time period, but it's not terrible. And we get pretty much yellow across the board for our, our parts and how it's handling the engine. Now we have a lot of fuel octane here, and I might end up making the cam profile a little bit less aggressive to kind of combat that. So what we're trying to look for here is a point where we start coming down on the revs here. So 32, 31, 30. All right, so looks like 32 is about as far down as we can go before it starts getting a little bit too tame. So let's see if we can do any more than that. Okay, so down to 27 is where it really starts to come back. I might go that tame to try and help our parts here. It's also going to make the, excuse me, the engine run a little bit smoother, having a cam profile a little bit less aggressive, which is good in a luxury car, I would think. So let's go back here and mess with our RPM limit here. So we're still, looks like 5,900 is our peak. But we could bring that back if we wanted to. So 5,900, and I would say we could probably even bring that down up to 5,600, and then we have green parts across the board. And but if we, see that one tick, because then we have the color change, is going to be a pretty dramatic difference in reliability. So right here is at our most reliable. But here is where we have our peak performance index. The difference in the peak performance index, though, is looks like less than a point. So we got 52.9 versus 51.2. So about, 1.7 points difference. And we gain quite a lot of reliability as a result. So I might put it at this point, but we'll think about it. Because there's going to be more changes to how this power comes in, for sure. Now, I'm going to do what I normally do and make the fuel mixture lean so that we get decent fuel economy. Right now, we're not performing too well as far as our horsepower is concerned, but you have to keep in mind that we have a lot of fuel octane to work with. So I'm going to bring this up to 8.5, I think, for the meantime. Although I could easily bring this up to 9. We wouldn't have much room. We still have a little ways to go with things. So we're back up to 213. And again, our exhaust might need tuning based off of where we are now. See if I bring it down, we get a little bit more. But we plan on bringing this back up, so we'll keep the exhaust where it is. Ignition timing needs changing. And of course, by changing the ignition timing, we just changed where the power came in by a good margin. And let's see if the peak is still 5,900. It appears it is. So we may have to keep it there. Although we could play maybe with our cam profile to try and bring that back down. But as you can see, we have to really mess with that. Yeah, I'm thinking that what we did with our cam profile was probably a little too extreme. Let's put it at 32, because that seems to be a little bit better. And where is our peak? Still probably 5,900? Yeah, 5,900 it looks like. And we may have to settle for that. Now we're just kind of playing around with the numbers, see where we are. So this is kind of bouncing around quite a bit as we change our ignition timing. I'm hoping that it comes back down. There we go. That's a little bit better. And we're starting, I think we're actually at our limit for knocking. Oh, we just knocked, as a matter of fact. So we got to where I wanted it, and then it knocks. Oh, that's bad. So 5,900 is still our peak, though. It hasn't changed. Well, maybe not true. Yeah, no, that is true. So, yeah, for sure, 5,900. So that didn't really change anything as far as reliability goes. So don't really see a reason why to mess with things too much. So where we're at right now, we've got 239 horsepower, which we're doing almost 10 better than what the Chevy engine was doing. And our torque is very high compared to what it was before. I think we were in the 260s. Now we're up to 278. Now our exhaust, again, might need tweaking, so we're going to have to play with that a little bit. So it still looks like 2 inches is best for us. And let's play with our cam profile and see if we can do anything with that. I don't think we're going to. Like, even if we go tame here quite a bit, you see that it's not really changing until we get to this point. And then, of course, we're knocking. Oh, that's one thing I do have to keep in mind, of course, that we knock at certain points. But bringing it up is just going to make our power start progressively going up and up. As cam profile is usually going to affect, where your power comes in the most out of any setting you do. Okay, so I'm pretty happy, I think, with this engine. Of course, we can play with the pistons and conrods here. For instance, going with forged steel, not crank. I-beam steel and forged will get the reliability back up to where I want it. It should affect emissions, though. It will also affect our fuel octane. It will actually give us more fuel octane than if we use the hypertectic. We could also go with lightweight forged, which would make our engine more smooth. It would give us the same benefits of fuel octane. And we're going to have a little bit worse emissions, it looks like, and a little bit worse cost. But it's the same cost as the hypertectic before it. Production units is a big difference, though, as we can see. So production units here, production units here. Big difference. So yes, it makes it smoother. And yes, it reduces weight. But I think I'm just going to go with normal forged here. So we get our reliability back up, and we can play with the power here a little bit more, as I was happy with this. So hopefully we can get things. Oh, no, that's not where I want it. And that brought it back. Got it down to 5,500, back up, back over there. Okay, and I think we're just shy of knocking. If we go one more, it will knock. Yep. So we're at 5,400, and I'm going to assume the power is still at 5,900 as far as peak, which it is. But I feel a little bit better about this. We're going 500 beyond where our power is coming in. We're still maintaining 61.6 reliability because we dealt with a lot of what was causing us issues. We're not really having valve floats, so that's not really a problem. Okay, so I'm pretty happy here. We got 246 horsepower and 283 foot-pounds of torque, which we're not really competing with that 5.7 liter engine. Although we did come close to matching its horsepower, right? Or was it 255 that the horsepower came in? I'd have to look again. Looks like 245. So we did beat that. But torque for sure. The Chevy V8 was much more torquey. So I don't think we were ever going to really beat that. But in any case, I'm pretty happy with what we got. So now it's time to name it. And this we're going to call the CF CFI 5.0. No, we'll call it CFI 91. Kind of keep it with the same kind of language we've been using. There we go. And we'll call the variant the 5.0, and I'll put a C on it so that we know it's for the Constellation. Okay, so I think that's our engine. So let's go ahead and take a look at it here once we get to our sandbox. So the two engines we're going to be using in the Constellation are a variant of the BS engine as well as our new CFI engine. So we have 154 horsepower versus the 145 we were getting before. 6 more points almost of foot-pounds of torque. A little bit worse emissions, it looks like. Responsiveness a little bit better. Loudness much quieter, and that's exactly what we were going for. This is supposed to be a more comfort-oriented, luxury-oriented, well, not necessarily luxury, I'd say comfort-oriented car. We have production units a little bit more. Costs as well is higher, but we have the same reliability. We have a little bit better economy, and weight is a little bit more as well. So V8 so far looking pretty good. If we were to compare this to the HP 386 engine, which was the engine we used in the last time period, and its Constellation variant, which is the C variant here, we're seeing a definite increase in horsepower as well as torque. Emissions are halved to what they used to be, but this used a carburetor as opposed to the fuel injection, so keep that in mind. Responsiveness is a lot higher, and again, I think that's a difference in the fuel system. Loudness is about the same. Smoothness is a little bit worse in our new engine. Production units is definitely longer. And cost is actually a little bit cheaper, which is interesting to see. Reliability is a definite improvement, which I'm happy to see. Now we're getting to the 90s. I think that's kind of what you expect out of the 90s, is cars are starting to be just a little bit more reliable. Economy is definitely a decent increase, more than, well, 2.5 points looking at, and percentage points anyway. And we have using the same fuel quality, and we have a little bit more weight as well, though, looks like. But in any case, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. This is Mouse Gunner signing out.